I'm Frank Gehry, and this is my master class. I'm influenced by a lot of people. I read a lot of stuff. I look at a lot of stuff. And I think that encourages and engages one, and I don't think you can substitute anything for it. You have to be curious and search out these great works from the past, not to copy them, but to at least understand what it meant. I was fascinated with the fold. I mean, everybody through the history of art and architecture has been fascinated with the fold. Michelangelo spent a great part of his time drawing folds. It's primitive, because when you're a child, you're in your mother's arms, and the fold is... So there was something magical about exploring that idea in something as concrete as a building. I have a very close friend, Irving Lavin, who's professor of art history, who is an expert on Michelangelo and Borromini, Bernini, and all those guys. And he and I travel, and his wife and my wife, we travel occasionally to go look at stuff. And he took me to Dijon and introduced me to Klaus Schluter. There is a sarcophagus of Philip the Bold, and surrounding it are figures by Schluter, Klaus Schluter, that are rarely seen. If you look at those, you can begin to see where the influence on this conference room. In this case, I was very inspired with that one piece. If you look at the front, the nose right head on of that piece, you'll see the Schluter dip that he made with the hoods. They came over the heads of the monks, and there's a little dip like that. It's quite beautiful. And I didn't realize I'd literally taken it till later. In my early days in practicing architecture in Los Angeles, I became very close to the local art scene, they called it. There were a lot of artists that became my friends. I was interested in their work. I was personally close to them and to their work, and I watched them create their work, and they watched me create my work, and there was a kind of synergism between us. Even though they were separate but equal, so to speak. And in my formative years of practice, that was an important thing. At Harvard, I was exposed to Corbusier. There were people from Corb's office working there, were teaching at Harvard. Corbusier had a show of his paintings, and I looked at those paintings, and I didn't like the paintings. I thought they were all over the place. But then I saw the designs for Ronchamp, and the little church near the Swiss border. And it's so beautiful. It came out of those studies of the paintings. I could see a direct line from the paintings to the building. It made me realize that at least this architect could work out through another media. I mean, like Michael Heiser is really an incredible artist who I look to. He grew up with a father who was an archaeologist, and so Michael, in his early years, experienced Egypt and the scale of those constructions. And he emulated in his work with double negative. He's an intellectual primitive. I'm very attracted to that kind of thinking. Where do the influences come from? If you see a painting and you can't forget it, and you start riffing off it, even if you don't know it, if you subconsciously do it, is to trust it and to explore it. The most important thing, takeaway, is to be yourself and not try to be me or anybody else. You can be inspired by characters like me and people like Bob Smithson, his philosophy, his writings, Frank Lloyd Wright and Mies van der Rohe and Corbusier and Bob Venturi and Rem Koolhaas and Tom Maine and all kinds of people who are working in the field. Those are wonderful people to study and to understand. But in the end, it's got to be you, your conscience, your talent, your mind, directed to creating a building or an environment that other people are going to use, and that has a responsibility of being a good neighbor and has a responsibility of keeping the rain out and being a place where people can comfortably live, work, play, all the things you do in buildings, and be inspired by the building and be nurtured by the building and have the experience of the building be a positive and uplifting one.